Welcome to my lesson on income elasticity, another fun topic when it comes to microeconomics. Again, with all elasticities, it's a matter of responsiveness and quantity, in this case, to changing income. Again, let's define the concept, let's illustrate it, let's calculate it from simple data using the same type of formula, and realizing that once again it's all in the values, the coefficients that determine the type of elasticity and what are these goods all about that causes different types of elasticity. And then, of course, to examine and evaluate the implications of using this knowledge, particularly for firms and indeed nations when it comes to type of products they are producing. Let's take a look. First of all, measuring income elasticity of demand. It is the change of quantity demanded, how much it's responding to a change in consumer income, and there is the formula for you. Partly the denominator is blocked out by the video here, but it's percentage change in income is the operational cause to the effect of the percentage change in quantity demanded. Let's first of all take a look at a demand curve as we've known it so far. Simple function, downward sloping inverse relationship. Now you know how much or what will happen to this demand curve if there's a change in consumer income. If there's an increase in income, there'll be an increase in demand, meaning that at each and every price level, there's going to be more quantity demanded because there's more available income for consumers. The question we look at now is how much is that shift going to take place? And so what we'll have is a different graph here. We'll have not price but income on the y-axis, quantities once again on the x-axis. And so it's a positive relationship because of course with more income comes more quantity demanded. And a typical shape would be just an upward sloping curve. So this is a income elasticity of demand relationship here, and we see a clear example of, say, a $40,000 a year income, and a family might be buying 100 liters of milk per year, and that could be a type of inelastic product because it's a necessity. Because even at low income, there's a certain amount of milk that a family would like to have, at least in a lot of countries. And should you increase your income up to $50,000, being a 25% increase in income, you may only have a 10% increase in quantity, and therefore that's less proportional change in quantity. The coefficient is going to be less than 1, and that's because it's a necessity product. Now, when we come to luxury products, it's more flatter. So as all elasticity curves go, the flatter the curve, the more elastic, because we're seeing on the horizontal axis a greater degree of change in quantity. So once again, if we start at a $40,000 a year income, and if we're talking about liters of chocolate milk in this case, then as income increases to $50,000 a year, maybe now what's going to be happening is, in addition to that milk that's already been bought for usual purposes of breakfast and tea and coffee, now the chocolate milk is for a dessert and extra beverages. That's more of a luxury item, and you could as much as double your consumption of chocolate milk, or you might say ice cream or some other luxury that you can now start, a family can start affording now because there's been a 25% increase in income, and that extra disposable income for consumers now can be put towards buying luxuries. Now, there's another interesting case about income elasticity, and that is the question of inferior products. By definition, an inferior product is cheap is a good word in two senses. It's less expensive and less quality. And therefore, as consumers get more income, then they'll actually increase the demand for the normal goods, non-cheap, but for the inferior goods, they'll substitute away from them. So the cheap, nasty stuff that they no longer need to buy because they've got more income, that demand will decrease. So it's an inverse relationship. Coefficient is negative. And so any of these examples might be useful to argue, but notice that it's always within the context of a particular time and place. Public transport might be easy to imagine that as soon as people get more income, they'll abandon the bus and buy a car, go to work in that type of thing. But not always, isn't that right? Some people are very happy to take public transport in the inner city. Or no-name brand products may be quite suitable for people who just want to be careful with their spending, but brand name products do tend to be bought when people can afford it. Fast food restaurants. Now, this could be an inferior good if people choose to eat out at better restaurants. But if people didn't eat out at all, maybe a fast food is more luxury. So it's very much arguable as long as you are in an essay arguing why a certain change in quantity demanded is taking place, then you're showing your understanding, which is all that's required. Chocolate's another good example. It may be a cheap dessert if you just go to the grocery store and buy a box of chocolates, or a cheap present. When you get more income, you might buy more expensive desserts and more expensive presents. Now, an inverse relationship, of course, would look like this, a downward sloping curve. So in this case, if we have boxes of home brand cereal, which is a no-name brand, and as consumers get more and more income, what's happening here is that there's going to be less bought of the breakfast cereal. So that's how you show a decrease in the quantity demanded, the negative coefficient of income elasticity of demand for inferior products. Now note that what we're not going to bother with here is whether this shift is going to be less or more than 1. Just a negative coefficient is all you need to know to identify if it's going to be an inferior product. Now let's take a look at how we can use this information. First of all, let's discuss the differences between primary, secondary, and tertiary goods. Primary goods, you may recall, are goods in the primary industries that are producing natural products from the earth and the sea. And whatever is agriculture and mineral, that is the sort of thing that makes up the commodities market. And the reason why it's primary as well is because that this kind of product is the same around the world. So they're homogeneous. It's very, very competitive. Whereas secondary goods are basically using primary materials to produce manufactured goods, and tertiary are services. They're intangible. They're the non-physical, non-touchable goods. Really, there are services. Now, this is all very important, especially later on in the course in section 4 on development economics, because it really has to do with what is a country majoring in production on, because there's actually going to be the implication of YED on which of these types of good you are producing for the country. And here's the thing, most developed countries are tending to produce the tertiary products and maybe some secondary products as well, because that is where the wealth is. Because as there's increasing income around the world, income elastic products are those in the tertiary and secondary sectors, because these are the luxury items by and large, whereas primary products are really the necessity items. So it's really about low elasticity versus high elasticity, and high income elasticity goods will be drawing in more revenue as world incomes grow in different countries around the world. As growth is experienced, that's where the extra revenue is coming in, and the richer nations just get richer, whereas any nations that are majoring in exports for primary products, which are not going to increase very much as in quantity exports as income around the world does, then they're not going to be increasing very much. And this is regardless and very distinct from PED. It's not really about whether the price changes. They might even be getting a higher price, or the price fluctuation, it may be steady, but still this is a problem. This is a different problem. And it's another problem for those countries that export mainly primary products. So there you have it. Pretty much some very interesting applications there for, and of course this also applies for individual businesses as well. That in fact, you might say that businesses that do very well in necessity products will do very well in times of recession, because people will have a downturn in income, and there will be an increased demand for inferior products. And that's why a business should have a good range of both inferior and normal goods to cover in both the boom and bust times of an economy. All right. Hope you enjoyed this video, and good luck on any questions you have on this topic.